Welcome back to the all-new Sports Cage. We teed it up earlier. We teed it up on socials. Joining us in studio, legendary NHL goaltender and broadcaster Greg Millen in Regina. Thanks for stopping by. I know we're going to get to your speaking in Regina, and that just wrapped up. Pretty cool. I want to first off go. We hear you on TV now, broadcasting. How many games a year are you doing? Are you amping it up, kind of scaling it back? Well,
well, I'm scaling back and they're scaling me back, I guess. But, back in the day, it was over 100 games. It was crazy, right through to the, whether you had Olympics in there or two mixed in, whether you had, the Stanley Cup final. I've been very fortunate. I'm getting towards the end. I do about 30 games a year now, which quite frankly has been perfect with Calgary. Mostly when Kelly goes one way, I go the other. And Kelly Rudy, and it's been a real treat because the Calgary Flames are a really fun organization to be around. They get it. They're getting better. They're really good people. So for me to scale down a bit and get that many games, plus I love to ski in Silver Star Mountain where my sister-in-law lives. It's not far away, so it's a pretty nice lifestyle for me at the moment.
You called a lot of games with a lot of different broadcasters. First off, do you still love it?
Love it. Yeah. I mean, the moment of calling a game is as close as you can be to a player. You get the ups and the downs. I mean, it's changed. We got social media now. We got Twitter to make sure they tell me when I make a mistake, which I make many. But, the home team always can get a little bit mad on national broadcast because they're used to the home team getting the plugs and you're trying to keep it down the middle. But, when the event starts, and it's the people in the business as well, I know everybody pretty much in terms of managers and coaches, and we've all said it many times that hockey is a real special business in terms of relationships, and I will miss that part.
Four Nations Cup coming up, no All-Star game. We got the Olympics next year.
No All-Star game, all right. I love that.
Yeah. Do you like the Four Nations idea?
Yeah, I think it's a start. I'm disappointed, like we all would be, that Kucherov or Draisaitl or some of the real names in our game are not participating. I get it with the way the world is at the moment. But in saying that, it should provide a real fun brand of hockey, get people ready for the Olympics, get the teams ready. I'm surprised that the teams didn't bring a few more younger players with them to get them ready for the Olympics. They didn't. I think everybody just plain wants to win. And it should be interesting. USA Hockey's come a long way. I mean, their numbers now are astronomical in terms of who's playing. And that will change the landscape for Canadians a little bit, I think, when they start watching this.
The other thing, too, when you look at that American roster that comes out, their forwards are big.
Yeah. Big, strong. Kachucks will be annoying. I mean, they've got a bit of sandpaper. They got a bit of everything. But again, I mean, we've got players coming out of St. Louis now. We got players coming out of California. We got players that I've never even heard of coming out of places I don't even know exist in the U.S. So it's a big nation. They've caught on to hockey, which is great for the game. But it's tough for Canadians now because, we're not a big country and it's getting more and more expensive to play. And it makes it a little difficult for all of us in Canada to participate like it used to be. You hope the weather like today here is such that players can play outside and keep that that love going, because that's important.
Yeah. Canadian goaltending, right? There's been so much talk on that and who is going to be on this team and what are we going to look like when we go to Italy. As a goaltender, where do you think Canada is right now as far as the top goal? Are we making too much of this?
No. We'll see, right? I mean, you never know how the goaltending is going to be. I can tell you we have a void in Canadian goaltending development in this country, because when you're a 15-year-old, you have to probably not play midget, depending on where you are. A lot of midget hockey, major midget, not minor, but major midget hockey, they're not great because all those players end up playing provincial junior or they play major junior. And so the goaltenders now they need to play. Well, where do they play? Because we know provincial junior is a business. We know major junior is a business. So they play the 18-year-olds. They play the 19-year-olds. They play the 20-year-olds. Meanwhile, there's a void from that 16 area through to about 18-ish. Unless you're a really elite, you don't play. So you don't develop. Where do we put goaltenders to develop in this country? I've said this for a very long time. I don't like the fact that European goaltenders are allowed in major junior hockey because I think it takes another Canadian job away for development. And I know it's a business, but every time you do that, that's one less player that can play at a very specialized area. I do think we have to look at that a little bit more. The other thing quickly is the cost. to outfit a goaltender now, it's bad enough forwards, but a goaltender and all the costs that go with it. Now they're all going to these elite goaltending schools. Price is a problem also.
The one thing that, we hear a lot, and we had Royden Gunn on talking about it, who's got a goalie camp in Saskatoon, is, and I hear it, growing up with two kids in hockey, is they're not letting young kids in that, novice Adam, they're not letting them just be goaltenders. They say, no, you guys still got to be a player because we're not letting you just play goal. And a lot of people are saying that's part of the problem, where you get to, now into Adam or Pee Wee, and it's like, okay, now you're a goaltender, but you weren't allowed to do it. Do you think they should just kind of let kids feel it all when it comes to hockey?
I think they should play all positions. I mean, when they're that young, let's be honest, they're that young. I mean, it should be all about having fun, which at times in our country gets lost. We should be letting them play all positions. Quite frankly, you better know how to skate if you're going to be a goaltender. If you're going to shove them in net when you're 5 years old, it doesn't help their skating ability.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got goaltenders that haven't played until they're 15, 14 that have actually played in the National Hockey League. So I don't buy that theory. Goalie coaches will buy it because they get to, work on young goalies. But I hate to say it, but for me...
For sure, yeah.
For me, I think it's, we get a little bit carried away with minor hockey in general.
It was Pittsburgh, Hartford, Quebec, Chicago, then the Rangers and Detroit. I totally forgot about those stops for you in your career.
Me too.
You saw a lot of young tenders come out of the league. You got to, in Chicago, there were two youngsters, and I had a chance to interview him on the Nooner with Ed Belfour. But the Hasek was there as well as the youngsters. Very emotional guy, Ed, right, to his own admission and all that. When you were there and they were coming up young, did you see the greatness in both of those guys? Could you?
Well, put it this way, they ended up in the press box, and both of them beat me out, and they're both Hall of Famers now, so it makes me feel a little bit better. And also Mike Keenan, you mix that into the whole thing here, which I don't usually say that name very often, but no, they were competitive guys and very good. I've got a funny Hasek story that I'll never forget. We were in an exhibition game in Milwaukee carrying 3 goalies, and it was Hasek's turn to play. So I was in the stands with Steve Larmer, who was a good friend of mine from the same town that I lived in the summertime. And so anyway, Hasek ended up in the first period without a glove, stick-hand glove, without a stick, at the hash mark, so halfway up the ice, skating back to his net after making a save, swimming out there. And I said to Steve Larmer, who was a good friend, I said, Steve, that guy can't beat me out. I mean, look at the way he's playing goal. I mean, he's swimming on the ice. He has one glove off. He has no stick. Steve used to chew gum. He's chewing his gum. He looked at me. He said, Millsy, he's got the quickest feet I've ever seen. At that point, I knew I was going to be out of a job because he's a pretty honest guy, Larms. One of my good friends telling me you're done. But yeah, it was an interesting style. It completely confused me, and what it did is put me in the press box, thanks to the other name I said it a moment ago. I played 58 minutes that year, 58 big ones, and that was towards the end of my career, so that was the end of that.
Earlier in your career, going back, we saw this summer where Holloway and Broberg were restricted free agents, and St. Louis plucked them away. Edmonton didn't counter. There's the story when you were a restricted free agent in '81, Hartford signs you. And then the story I read is because the Pittsburgh GM was on vacation and didn't have a chance to counter.
Good old Baz Bastine. I'll never forget when Baz pulled me in the office after I let 5 in my second professional game. And I think he was about to send me down, and he grabbed his chair, and unfortunately for him, it was a swivel chair. He fell right in his ass on the office. And that was the end of that. And he said, "Get out of here, kid." So I was sure I was going to get sent down if it wasn't for the swivel chair. So that's Baz. We had an offer on a Friday from Hartford, Larry Plow, who was in the business a very long time. We told Pittsburgh. I loved E.J. Johnson was my coach. I didn't want to leave Pittsburgh, but I played my option out at back then. I played 62 games, I think, or so my third year at $40,000 because they were offering us 70. And I fired Alan Eagleson, and I ended up with a criminal lawyer out of Sault Ste. Marie that said, if you take that, you're nuts. So I played my option out, lost a lot of money at that point and a lot in our life. Gave Pittsburgh 3 days to counter the offer because we did not want to leave. Larry Plow called on a Sunday night and said, we're going to sign you. So we jumped on a plane, went to Connecticut, signed at his house. The next morning, I'm in the hotel in Hartford, and I got a call from the president of the Pittsburgh Penguins at the time, Paul Marth. He said, well, I heard you're signing. I said, well, yeah, we've given you 3 days. He said, what do you mean? He said, what if we offer you U.S. Steel? I said, you can offer whatever on it. We're signed. He said, well, I said, we told Baz. And then I found out that Baz went golfing and didn't believe us. Yeah.
Free cell phone, free internet, free everything, right?
Yeah,
It was just,
no, it was an interesting time. It's unfortunate because I really do wish I could have stayed as a long-time Penguin, but, you know, it was so much money back then, and my young family, I couldn't do it.
Regina, more specifically, Sasky guys, right? Like you got to play with Chaser, with Twist, Dirk Graham from Regina.
No, you're missing the big guy.
The late Brad McCrimmon, too.
Yeah.
Right?
I played with Beast in Detroit for a very short time. What a wonderful person and competitor he was. Really miss my roommate, Bernie Fedorko. 5 years.
Yeah, Foam Lake.
Yeah, 5 years with Bernie, and we had a lot of fun together, and he's still a very good friend. Chaser, of course, was there as a young kid.
Are those Sasky kind of prairie guys? You know, you're from out east. Are they a little bit different? Like, you know, just because they were sort of the grittiness. And Melrose always talked about that.
I think I kind of wish I was always a Westerner to begin with. I did a lot of time in did the Western late game for Hockey Night for 15 years with Chris Cuthbert, and always sort of lived out here in my PV career. I've always had a great respect for Western hockey players because they're riding the buses the way they are. You know, it's you get a player that's got some character and some grit usually, and they usually find a way to make it to the National Hockey League. Chaser's a great example of that.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I mean, I do have a soft spot for those players for sure.
I got to ask you. I was like I said, when I was a youngster, I was a hockey card guy. I don't know if Colson, you got any of the pictures.
I hope not.
But I have to ask you, and my buddy in Saskatoon and I were talking with this because he was a goalie. It's like, you got to ask him what was with his helmets. He always had like the mask that was right up against your face. I think it was the Hartford one where it almost looks like you're wearing a piece of Tupperware.
Yeah, well, I got that's why I'm not very smart now, because I got hit in the head with a Jaffa helmet on all the time with a puck. But it was funny. My father, when the time came, everybody wore cage growing up, and then now the fitted mask came.
Yeah.
My dad was an engineer, so that sort of had something to do with this, I guess. And he said, why would you ever wear a fitted mask? First of all, you can't see down, correct? And secondly, every time you got hit, you cut your eyes, correct again. So I stayed with the wire cage, and then once the new cage came out, you know, which you see the combination of the fitted and the wire, I tried it, but it was later in my career, and like all stubborn old goaltenders, I didn't want to change anything. So at that point, I didn't. But the Jaffa helmet was a little dumb. I'm not going to lie. Yeah, a little dumb.
You're in town. You're a keynote speaker on character leadership. Now, when people get a chance to listen to Greg Millen speak on character leadership, what do they hear?
Well, I fortunately I did a master's degree in leadership in my late 50s, and got involved with Ivy Business School in London, Ontario, and they've done a tremendous amount of work on character. I knew the woman, a distinguished leadership consultant and professor there, Dr. Mary Crossan, and so we've been pairing up for quite a while doing some character work. We work with Seattle Kraken. We work with the Carolina Hurricanes. Most recently, the Okanagan Hockey Group, who's done a lot of work on character. Dixon Ward there, who's quite involved in that. And I just, character is a word that everybody kind of rolls out of their mouth, but they really don't know what it is. And Ivy's been able to identify it and also work with people on character development teams, professional sports teams, professional business organizations. So it was an opportunity for me to share some of that today, and I really enjoy doing it.
And if anybody wants to book you and all that, obviously call Brent at Global Events. Is it .com?
Events Edge.
EventsEdge.com for sure. And because I think, you get a chance to hear something different. And I feel as a parent too, right? Even for me with my kids, it's my voice. And then when it's someone else's voice, and then we get that in business as well.
Yeah, well, there's a big void in hockey as well for it. I mean, in minor hockey, coaching is a big one as well, character, and how coaches conduct themselves, because they have such a huge influence in kids. And Brent's helped me out, keeping me in line here and making sure that we can spread the word a little bit, and which is much appreciated. And it's a fun topic, but one that people don't really understand. And that's the greatest thing about Ivy. And it's kind of our Harvard of Canada. They've really done a wonderful job and they go all over the world talking about character development. So I have a real good resource, and I'm very fortunate to have them.
Events Edge Entertainment is where they can book Greg. There's a number of different speakers. You can go online there and see the number of different people, individuals, females, males that Brent can bring it. Thank you so much for stopping by. I know you got to fly out here right away. Really appreciate it.
Well, it's been great. I always love doing this. And, when you're around hockey people like yourself and people who loves hockey and sports, it's always a great time. We giggle probably more off air than we do the last 5 or 10 minutes, so it's fun.